What's up, YouTube fans? Today we're doing a comparison of the X-Transbots Lock with the Fans Toys Coot, both versions of a Masterpiece Scale Cup. So both of these figures came out a while back. This guy came out in 2021, late 2021, and this one came out in 2017. So 3 years ago and 7 years ago, and they're about 4 years apart from each other. Now this is version 2 of Lock. There was a version 1 which had a lot of issues and problems, and they actually replaced it with this version. Now some retailers sold the version 2, other retailers got their version 1 replaced with version 2, so it depends where you bought it from. There's different iterations and different stories. Talk to any retailer about this figure. It was kind of a nightmare for them to deal with it, but we have them here now thanks to Dr. Diecast for sending this over for review. Now, with that being said, as I always mention with these comparisons, I try to be as objective as possible. Of course, there's subjectivity involved when you're comparing things like this, especially when you've got a figure that has so much history. It's almost impossible to have not have heard about the issues. But we'll try to do our best. But if I pick one and you prefer the other, then you win. I really try to do these comparisons to help people decide what direction they want to go with their collection, up to and including getting both of the figures. With that being said, let's get started. We'll start off with accessories. All right, here are the accessories that come with these figures, and you can already tell X-Transbots is going to win, but let's go through them just so you can see. They both have a blaster, different colors, obviously, but and different overall sculpt. But you have that. They both come with a Target Master. The X-Transbots ones are really junky feeling, but they do come with two. So you do get an extra one. I'm just going to count these guys off together. Actually, I think this one is intended to be the same character. I don't know. Whatever. We'll just count one of them off. They both come with an alternate face with a cigar. And I've glued it into his face so we don't lose it on the Fans Toys one. And it does come with an extra. I have it in this little bag just so I don't lose it. But I'm not really going to count that as an extra accessory. I'm just going to count these two faces together. And then the Fans Toys comes with a replacement windshield so you can have this translucent blue look. And I'll count that off with the X-Transbots tail accessory. This is a Sharkticon tail weapon. And here's what you're left with. You get two additional faces for the Fans Toys. I mean, for the X-Transbots. You get an additional heady topper, anyone? For the X-Transbots. You get two alternate hands, which I found odd, but they are different shapes. The fingers are a little bit thicker on these. And you get the other Target Master. So we're going to give accessories over to X-Transbots. Right, now let's talk about the gimmicks on these two. And both of them have basically the same gimmicks. They both have the Target Master, or the weapons, which can plug into the base of the pickup truck in the back. And the X-Transbots, although this is not a gimmick for this guy, so I'm not counting it as an extra gimmick, but this Target Master can actually plug in to the engine of Masterpiece Hot Rod from Takara Tomy, which I thought was pretty cool, but since it's not a gimmick for this guy, I'm not going to count it. I just wanted to mention that here. All right, now let's take a look at the cartoon accuracy and the sculpt on these two. And for this particular character, I have two different cartoon images in the figure collections that I have from allspark.com. That's where I get the images. One is from certain scenes in the cartoon. The other one is from the movie. The Fans Toys one tends to be closer to the movie, but both of them really did a good job. I would say this one has like different shades of blue, whereas this one is like more green with blue. Both of them look accurate, so I'm going to give them a tie on cartoon accuracy. When it comes to sculpt, both of them look really good from the front and the side, but as soon as you get to the backpack, the Fans Toys one is pretty bulky, and overall, not as clean. The X-Transbots, really compact and clean. Comes at a huge cost. We'll talk about that later. But as far as the look, I think it's very clean. So I'm going to give sculpt over to X-Transbots. All right, now let's take a look at the build and paint. When it comes to the build quality, this is kind of a no-brainer. The X-Transbots, this is version 2, and even version 2 has some build issues. Lots of weird decisions on the hardware, especially for transformation. some variations in the tolerances, and overall it just doesn't feel very solid. Things like the ab crunch and stuff like that, just weird things on this guy. This is one of the frustrations. When you pick up this figure and you're going to manipulate it, you constantly are pushing this panel in. It just doesn't lock in place. And there's little things like that all over this figure, things that just don't lock in place. This one feels a lot more solid. It stays when you put it down, just kind of plants. Really no build issues overall with this guy. When it comes to paint, they are both fully painted. I do prefer the paint on the Fans Toys. X-Transbots paint tends to have chipping issues, especially on this figure. This figure has issues with paint chipping, especially during transformation. So while they are both fully painted, I do think the X-Transbots paint is a little more prone to chipping, and also just doesn't look as vibrant as the Fans Toys. So I'm going to give paint over to Fans Toys. All right, now let's take a look at the articulation, and we'll articulate each one individually. For the X-Transbots, the head is on a rotating swivel, gets up to there, down to there, rotates around, no side to side. Shoulder rotates around on a friction joint, out to the side on a friction joint, a little bit ugly under there, but it does work. Rotation at the bicep, things start coming apart if you're not careful, just hold it here. Double joint elbow gets you full bend. This starts coming out too, so there is an extra, there's a joint there, but again, the sculpt starts breaking up there. Rotation at the wrist. You have the bottom three fingers are connected, and then the top finger, the pointer finger, is separate. Like you mentioned, it does come with alternate hands if you want to use them, but these smaller hands are on there by default. This sometimes pops off, by the way. Rotation at the waist, ab crunch gets you down to there. You have hip skirts on the front, sides, and back. Legs go up to there. It's definitely hindered by that hip skirt. Back to there. Out to the side on a friction joint. That feels horrible, so be very careful with that. I guess it's okay, but it doesn't feel good. Rotation at the thigh around universal. You have a single jointed knee, but it gets you past 90 degrees due to the cutout in the back of the thigh, so that was a smart thing. We have ankle tilts. This is a frustrating thing because this panel constantly folds in on you, but you have ankle tilt this way as well as forward and backward on that joint. Often these feet fall down. He doesn't stand very well. You have to really balance him carefully on these feet because this joint is a little loose and it's on a pin, so unfortunately you can't tighten it. So just be aware of that. For the Fans Toys, you have head on a ball joint, goes up to there, down to there. You do get a little bit of side to side, and it rotates around. I really love the head sculpt on the Fans Toys. Shoulder rotates around on a ratchet joint, out to the side on a hinge. Rotation at the bicep, double jointed elbow, full bend. It does have a piece there, so continuation. Rotation at the wrist, single pin for the fingers, so no separate pointer finger, but I'm not going to give them an extra point for that because there's no articulation on the finger itself. Rotation at the waist. You don't have ab crunch on this figure, and I think a lot of people were shocked that it didn't. I was just opening that up to show you. So no ab crunch, that figure has extra. Coming to the waist, you have legs kick up to there on a ratchet, back to there, hindered by this piece here, out to the side on friction. Rotation at the thigh at a cut joint. Double jointed knee gets you the full bend, so a little more articulation than this guy on the knee. We have ankle tilts out to there, and then you have a toe tilt up and down. This definitely plants a little bit better than the X-Transbots. But overall, as far as differences in articulation, the Fans Toys has a very slight head tilt side to side and a double jointed knee, whereas the X-Transbots has the ab crunch, which is missing from the Fans Toys. Really, really close. Just by straight count, is going to go to Fans Toys. All right, next we'll talk about the transformation and engineering on these two. When it comes to transformation, this is very subjective, but This transformation is a nightmare, the X Transbots, and that's one of the reasons they released a version 2. They tried to fix some of the issues they had with some of the hardware. It's still pretty awful, but at least some of the issues with the hardware is better. The Coot is not that enjoyable, to be honest, the transformation. I did do a transformation video if you're interested, but I do find this one to be a little bit more enjoyable and easier than the X Transbots. I wouldn't say it's one of their best, but it's definitely better than this. So I'm going to give transformation over to Fans Toys. As far as engineering, they both do a pretty good job at, collapsing down the hardware for the robot. And X Transbots definitely has a cleaner backpack, but the engineering and everything back there is really just a nightmare to deal with. Some of the joints and tolerances and overall hardware is just not well done. So I'm going to give engineering to Fans Toys as well. All right, and there they both are in their vehicle modes. And before I talk about these, there are some actually pretty good transformation videos out there. For this one, MGO did a pretty good video. And I will tell you, even MGO broke his. So it's a very challenging transformation. He broke it on camera. He also scraped up the thighs. There's really no avoiding it. When you collapse these down, it does scrape the thighs. And then back here, it scrapes the ankles. So just be aware, if you're going to transform it, you are going to end up damaging some of the paint. But it does look decent. There's just a lot of panel breakup overall. Also, it's very hard to get it to sit flat. The wheels don't really roll all that well. The front two do, but the rear two kind of get stuck. But it just doesn't roll that well. The Fans Toys rolls really well. It comes together very solidly. It is a tough transformation, but I do think it comes together a little bit better than the X Transbots. I also like the fact that the weapons can store back here. So here's the gun. This can just plug in back here. And it's nice because you can have somebody sitting here and using this as kind of like, a target or whatever. And the X Transbots one does mount. Now the Target Master, these are trash, by the way, but it has a little tab. There's supposed to be two. There's one missing from this. That's just QC issue, but you can plug it in there. It just sits very loosely on here. It's not the best. I guess we can fold up the handle, but it just, it's so cheap and junky that you don't even want to put it there. Ideally, you'd have that other tab and it would sit there, but you can't put the other weapons on there. For the Fans Toys, the Target Master just looks better. It's more solid. But you can also plug the Target Master in here, which I thought is very cool that they thought about, storage or usage of the weapons in vehicle mode. I just love that you can use either one. The X Transbots it seems like an afterthought. So because of the overall look of the vehicle modes and the playability with the weapons, I'm going to give it to Fans Toys. I think they did a better job overall on the vehicle mode, and overall I just like the quality of the vehicle mode better. All right, next we'll talk about the costs on these two. And as always, I use the prices on ages 3 and up since they don't monkey with the prices once they post them. And the Fans Toys Coot, which came out first, was at $155 on their website, and Lock was at $160. Now, that is so close that I'm just going to call it a tie. They're really, really tight on the price, so we're going to give them a tie on the cost. And the final factor in this comparison is the Members' Choice category, where I asked my members which one they prefer just based on their own personal preferences and no other factors. And I often get a question, why do I include this category in the comparison? And it's really just to see what people prefer. And I don't have any bias in my audience, right? It's just people who like to watch my reviews. They're not particular to Fans Toys or to X Transbots. It's a random sample of people. They're not my friends. It's just, well, some of them are, but they're not necessarily just my friends. It's just a group of random Transformers collectors. So to me, it is worth asking the question. And they, to my surprise, picked the X Transbots in the Members' Choice category. And I think I understand why. He really does look really good in robot mode. So nothing else considered, I understand it. So final thoughts on the comparison. You can see the score, and Fans Toys is going to win this one. But I am surprised how many categories the X-Transbots took. For me personally, though, I'm going to stick with the Fans Toys. The X-Transbot just has too many issues in transformation, alt mode. I didn't even talk about it. These Target Masters are kind of crappy. They don't really work very well. They just don't feel good. And I do like the accessories they included, and I like the look of this guy. But when it comes to functionality, he just has all sorts of issues. Just namely, even standing up, sometimes he falls over. Setting up this pose, I would not leave him like this because he easily could fall down. So just little things like that bother me. But I can understand why someone might pick this up. It's just a very good looking version of Cup. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks to Dr. Diecast for sending this for a review. And we'll see you next time.